Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of CIR Live Agent Pursuit, here with Murrell and Rees Smith, two of our top rural agents. We got a lot of great rural agents, and we're so excited for you guys to be on the show, sharing your knowledge with us.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks for coming.
Welcome. It's always so funny because we have this pre-show that we're just like, we're in here drinking coffee, and it's like, we're blah, blah. And all of a sudden we get online, everyone's like,
We're like, hello.
Yes, hello.
Thank you for being here today.
Yes, a little
Brendan
stiff upper lip.
Yep.
And everyone's posture just gets like a little bit better. Anyways,
kick us off.
Kick us off. So let's start with you, Rees. How did you get into rural real estate?
Well, rural real estate come naturally for me. Born and raised on the farm east of Innisfail, cow-calf mixed grain operation. So the whole aspect of farm and ranch and rural is where I come from.
In your blood.
Yeah, in the blood, for sure. I went to U of C, got a Bachelor of Commerce, majored in marketing, and I tell this story quite often that all my classmates in graduation year were going, to doing interviews for big companies, Procter & Gamble, KPMG, all those, right? I went back to the farm and drove tractor that spring and never left the farm again.
Wow.
Raised cow-calf, 300 to 400 head right up until 2015. So also doing real estate part-time in those years between 2001, 2015, and so it's just in the blood. Yep.
Your farm stories are going to sound a lot less legit now.
Well,
How many head of cow-calf?
we only had
have you been
125
raising?
heads. We weren't compensating for anything.
That's right.
Bigger hat.
That's right, bigger hat.
Yeah. So same thing. I was born and raised on a farm in Saskatchewan. Go Riders.
Nice. Pride.
Mixed farm, same thing. Yep. So about 22 quarters of land, probably the same. You probably had more because you're bigger and better, I bet. But so that's kind of it. I didn't go to U of C. I got accepted to U of S, but I didn't go because I was working rigs and working on the farm. So
Nice.
Oil and gas for a lot of years and got into real estate. It was kind of a good fit. I bought with a CIR agent and bought a farm, and she said you should probably be doing this because you know what you're talking about. So
You guys are good at it, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so-
And both of you have killed it and been top producers at CIR, and so we're really interested to dive in on the rural side here.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with, because there's so many different aspects of rural. What's your definition of rural? What types of properties are there that you work with? Brett, start with you.
So definitely, well, farms, I'm sure you're going to say the same. Country residential is kind of the start farms, the city guys that want to live on the farm.
Right.
Don't want to do the work, so they sell it a year or two later, which is great for us. I don't know if you deal with that up north, but
Yep.
I have guys that want to live the dream to be on the acreage, and there's a ton of work on the acreage. So acreage for sure, and then farms is kind of where I like to get into. A lot bigger, a lot more commercial agribusiness, right? So quarter sections, full townships, whatever we can get, right? So.
Anything to add to that in terms of types of properties?
Everything from farm and ranch. I don't deal too much in the big commercial, hog barns, dairy barns. That's another whole segment that you need. That is a specialty, I think, that requires extra knowledge beyond even my knowledge. But also, again, just anything outside of the rural towns. I consider rural estate properties, your larger acreages, and then also urban fringe. We get quarter sections that are on the cusp of a development, redevelopment, zoning change, all that kind of stuff. Again, I think that does fall into rural.
Investment for servicing and putting in the services. And
absolutely.
Like that,
Yep. Yeah.
Your S funds and all that, yeah, definitely.
Nice. Yeah, it's so diverse, and one of the things that's interesting just from even a RECA perspective is if you have your rural, you really want your commercial as well. Because even parts of you might have someone that just has this, I'm going to call it hobby farm almost, but they have this land they want as an acreage for recreational purposes, but then all of a sudden they're trying to board horses out the back door, and it's like, okay, well now you have it where GST comes in and is applicable, and you actually need some commercial experience to be able to work with that. So,
Yeah.
so they both go hand
You
in
should
hand.
check with your accountant, actually.
Of course, you check it.
Absolutely. And you did just mention another aspect of it is the recreational properties as well, whether it's a quarter section of bush out west or even getting down into some of the lake villages and stuff. I still consider that rural as
I agree.
well.
Yep, I like it.
Cool. So from an education standpoint, obviously, you know, there's some classes realtors can take when they're getting licensed on Murrell. You guys would have obviously taken those too, but from an education standpoint, would you say that most of your knowledge just came from the fact that you grew up on farms?
Yeah.
Yeah, but for sure. You know, it might sound, this might be brutally honest, you know, and not to sound protectionist to my business, because there's lots of business out there for everybody.
Totally.
But I don't know, Brett might back me here, and a lot of it you just can't learn out of a book. Right from just the knowledge of the land and the aspects of having livestock, stuff like that. To be able to talk the talk and walk the walk has basically been a lifetime of learning, really, to this point. And we really bring that to real estate rather than bringing real estate to that, to you know, that aspect.
I want to speak to your introduction about how, and even when you talked about, there's, you know, the farm, the dairy, and X number of head of cattle, it's like it just rolls off the top of your head, like 150 head, and you're just like, and everyone knows you're talking about it. Some people are like, sorry, what? Like, sorry, that's
Right.
Just,
What are you talking about,
you know,
heads?
and you can hear somebody that's like, you know, we have X number of cows, and it's just like,
Right.
well, you know,
Yeah.
I might not say it that way. Right?
They might not all have heads.
That's right. Yeah.
So-
yeah. And I mean,
Audrey's watching this being like, you're right.
Well, we grew up
Like,
saying where
yeah.
there's livestock, there's dead stock. So, you know.
that's right.
So,
Yes. Yeah, that is a saying that some people might kind of.
Yeah. Even knowing
shirk
like
at,
crop
but-
rotation, stuff like that, what crops were in the last 5 years, and that all matters
Yeah.
with planting.
Yeah,
right?
just looking
So-
at the stubble that's
Yeah.
left from last year. Somebody on the phone asked, okay, well, what did they have on it last year? It's nice to be able to know to tell them that it had wheat on it last year without having to even ask the farmer himself. right?
Mustard,
Like,
we can tell because it's still there. Right?
There you go. But-
Just different product, different cereal crops, and different crops of all types, right? So
Yeah.
having that knowledge and living it. And
The education, the course components are the bare bones basics. There's another course you can take. I believe it's at the Olds College, and I haven't taken it yet. It probably should just to put another notch in the belt. It's a rural agricultural real estate related course. I believe it's pretty intensive actually. I don't know if it's a couple weeks or something.
so I just contacted them on Instagram, and they're getting
there
back
you
to
go.
me because they don't even know if they do it anymore.
Right.
The Instagram
Oh,
manager.
yeah, I knew that.
Because I wanted to get some credit, like there's no accreditations with, you know.
Right.
That's right.
I could take the real basics course, which is the basics.
The
like,
basics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even in the course, we learned you stick a shovel in the ground and you can tell the types of soils. Like I've never taken a shovel really out because all the MDs and stuff will know the classifications. That's how taxes are based and stuff like that. So
Right.
in the course, it's like dig your shovel in and see if it's clay or sand, and you can do that with a hand or whatever. But it's knowing that.
You've touched on something that's really interesting here because we didn't ask it in the questions, but you said, you know, you can talk to the MD and do this. And it's just like, well, what do you mean the MD? Like, where do you go? And this is where making sure you know the areas that you're selling in, because when you need to find the information and the soil classifications and what's available in what area, you need to know where to go and find that. And so you guys obviously have that knowledge, and that's another thing of just being able to find the resource. You might not know every piece of land or every grid, but it's like, I know where to find it.
Yeah. I mean, land changes from a mile makes a big difference sometimes.
Wow.
In the land, right?
Even
So-
finance, I think, you can, like, knowing that there's FCC and
Yeah.
who finances land, because a lot of guys will go to the Royal Bank or.
And that's Farm Credit Canada or Farm
Yeah,
Credit Corporation.
Farm Credit Corporation.
Farm Credit Corporation.
So, and those are the guys where you're dealing with that, right? The credit unions usually are better and stuff like that, because you go to, I've just done with RBC, we had a guy try to buy an acreage. Well, they look at the house and 3 acres.
Right.
Well, if you've got 50 acres, there's 47 acres of value that you're not getting value for. So just knowing who to talk to borrow the money.
Right. Yeah.
Or just talk
Lot-
to Rees. He's probably got lots.
It's a huge roadblock. It's financing for most people to get out into the rural areas, right? They don't realize that a residential, they think, I'll get a residential mortgage. Well, like Brett said, that's the first 3 acres in the house and maybe a double cart.
Yeah.
garage attached or detached, but not the big shop, not
Yeah.
the pens,
Not
not
the
the extra
outbuildings
acres,
and
not
the-
the big Quonset. No.
So side note question on this, because I can only imagine. So do you often find yourself on the other side of a deal with somebody representing a buyer who's looking to purchase your land, who's only ever worked in residential, and basically you're doing all of the work for both sides? Does that happen all the time?
For sure it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Based on what you're talking, like I can't imagine what that would.
You know, I wouldn't say this outside of our own company or whatever, you know, or what, but a lot of times.
Online.
Maybe just give it,
maybe
maybe just give it
Yeah,
a call.
probably going worldwide. It's probably going worldwide, yeah.
This is a podcast
but a
as
lot
well,
of,
but-
yeah, to be honest, again, you know, I would often like or prefer if another agent that doesn't have that experience would just basically hand me their clients.
Give it a referral.
I wouldn't even take a referral. I'd give them their half of the commission just to have,
Proper representation. Right?
yeah,
I get it.
yeah. Actually,
Well,
do the
that's-
whole deal, and here's your
That's
half.
a great thing to say,
right?
and I know that our entire management team, when somebody's getting involved, and you know, they call one of our managers and they say, "I have this property. You know, can you give me some advice?" The manager's advice is always, "You shouldn't be dealing with that client, and you should refer them."
Yeah.
Every single time.
Right.
I've got how much is the water and sewer bill each month? And it's a well in a field which has already been paid for. I get that one a ton.
Right.
So as soon as they ask me that question, like a water bill, you're like,
Uh-oh.
here we go,
Yeah.
right? Which is, and don't get me wrong, it's like me working on a condo downtown. I'm sorry, I'm referring that stuff.
Yeah.
out.
Because you want the
it-
client. It's like I want the willing buyer that has the funds to buy this. But
Right.
it's like
Because you want to do the best job for your seller in this
right.
case, right? And
Yeah.
and by doing the best job for your seller is probably representing that buyer, even though they came through another realtor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it gets messy, and
You
a
guys
lot
are-
of times we're educating. Like
You're running the same
right.
battle commercial
For sure.
realtors run into.
Yeah.
The same side. It's someone coming in, you know, it's third floor, you know, unit. Can I throw a laundromat in there? And it's just like, what? No.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you see him and I in the city, it's Stampede Week.
there you
or,
go.
or a movie. We're filming a show.
There you go.
Right.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. How do we pay for this parking?
Yeah.
Let's go to finding clients, because I know that it's different. You know, you go into town, or maybe some of the stuff is the same. You know, Rees, start with you.
Yep.
Where are you finding your clients from?
Well, of course, a lot of it is referral from my local area. Again, then beyond that, it is a lot the same. We do a ton of advertising. Carrie and I as Smith and Griffith Real Estate. Let's
Yep.
plug there. You know, we do advertise radio heavily. We do some TV advertising, and we get calls on that stuff. You know, from people that are interested in using our services, whether they end up using us or not. But
Yeah.
we do get a lot of calls from it. You know, and then we're doing everything. We're doing social media. We're doing what we probably don't do as much as some of the old boys club is
Yeah.
probably print. Gone largely away from print.
Fair.
And yeah, I think that's where most of our clients would come from.
How about yourself?
I'm
Brian?
pretty much the same way. Referral. I do a lot of advertising. I'm not on Global TV, but it's good to see you there. But I'm doing a lot of in town. I'm more Okotoks and South, right? So I'm sponsoring the Okotoks Dogs baseball team, the Okotoks Oilers. I sponsor those guys. Just word of mouth is a big one too. And
Yep.
and I do a lot of rural open houses, and I have really good turnouts for some reason. But same thing, social media is big. I do have my own social media lady, and then yeah.
You guys have both done a great job of making your own personal brands as well. That's extended through, and we've done sessions of our agent pursuit on branding. But is that something you found has had a difference for you, that people know the name from Griffith? Is that right?
I'm Griff, and he's Griffith.
Griffith.
Yeah.
You're Griffith. He's Griffith.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Griffith and then Griffith.
Yes.
And people are starting to recognize that in and
Yeah.
around the communities you work in.
Yeah, for sure. I got to give a lot of credit to Carrie in developing that brand out
Yeah, cool.
with all her advertising experience and marketing as well. She's also a BCom grad from U of C, so we share that.
Perfect.
Yeah, so we have a really good synergy. Her coming from that background, and she's also a rural country girl, so spent some time living in the city, but she came from Balzac on a mixed cattle and grain operation. So yeah, the synergies
so
just
great.
work really well, and we've been able to encompass that in our brand. Yeah, for sure.
And you're good people, right?
We like to-
And you're good
We try.
It's
Well, these two two of the most likable gentlemen you'll ever meet.
I think
I'll never
if,
say
if
that.
we're in a course
Years.
together, we're having fun, right?
Yeah.
And if you can't have fun, like I was on gas 19 years, and there was a lot of great years, and at the end, I was so soured. I just walk into this was a fresh start and a breath of fresh air. Coming to even like CIR in whole, right? It's
Yeah.
got a pretty good.
Yep.
And first time I met Reese was like, you just click, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
so, and referring back
Yeah,
and
we're good.
forth, and I don't want to drive north anymore, so you know,
Yeah, for sure.
you know.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, we are going to talk about that. So let's talk about working with buyers, and that's going to be part of this. So when you're working with your farmers and your ranchers, and then you're working with your me in 10 years when I'm like, I just want to have 2 pigs and 2 goats and 6 chickens.
And a
find
flowing
someone.
dress, yeah.
Yeah, and like a fake garden. I hire someone to weed. Different people. What's your approach? Because that's a gamut, right? Like it's very different than being like I work with single family home buyers.
Well, it's a softer approach with acreage I think with acreage buyers and first time buyers out in the country because they don't know. It's a lot of education. And with hard
Like you
nosed.
had to send me a video once on like what it's actually like to have goats, and I was like, nah, it can't be that hard.
Literally, she
Yeah.
Googled, this is a funny story, because she was looking at like, you see these little mini goats and stuff like that, and she Googled, house
Oh,
goat,
my
like where it
search
is.
history.
And literally the very first article that comes up is if you're searching for house goat, you should not own a goat.
Yeah, from,
That
yeah.
was basically it.
Yeah, but with farmers and ranchers, I mean, they're pretty old school. They're a little rough around the edges.
Yeah.
You got to be a little hard nosed, and they're looking for production. It's about numbers. It's about finances. It's about adding to their operation and making it bigger and more effective than it has been. And so they're pretty astute. Whereas generally your acreage buyers they want to live the dream. They want their emotions are riding high on, I can't wait to get out to the country.
That
So-
must be tough though, because I bet
It's
you have
diff-
to,
it's
I bet
like
you
wearing
have to
different
temper a lot
hats.
of that too, though, right?
Oh,
Like, if I
absolutely.
was-
Yeah,
if I was
like come
buying
down
an
to
acreage,
earth
like,
here.
you'd
Right,
really
yeah.
have to temper what I thought acreage life was going to be like, while still making it exciting to buy a house.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Brett, you mentioned that I love those clients because they, the repeat clients on,
Yeah.
on the side of it. So tell us about that. Tell us about the new buyer. What are their unrealistic expectations, and what are you doing to educate them on what country life is really like?
So just being honest, and like I have building experience. My brother-in-law's a builder, right? So I know how to put in a septic field. I've done my own fields. I've drilled my own wells. So having that knowledge for me is key. But letting them know that you're not just moving in and mowing the grass every 2 or 3 weeks, and you don't want to turn the sprinklers on, because if you turn the sprinklers on, you're mowing more. So there's a lot of work to do, right? So it's like you're going to spend an hour on a lawnmower minimum a week. Like I would.
And we're probably
at
not talking
least-
about a lawnmower.
No, we're talking a riding lawnmower.
Yeah, which is like but in terms of like
Huge
budgeting in
maintenance.
your home expense costs, it's like, and you're gonna have to buy a
You have a
John Deere
tractor.
lawnmower,
Yep,
right?
there's a tractor or a bobcat, there's snow removal. If you have a horse,
Yeah.
there's a waterer that's probably gonna freeze in the winter and you're gonna
There
have
you
to know how to unthaw it. A shop.
The
all-
power,
your
power does go out,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Some will have generators. I don't see a
Yep.
whole lot of generators. We're not in 1976 anymore,
Right.
which was a great year, by the way. That was when I was born. But when the power went out, then you'd be 2 days possibly, right? Like
Right.
now we're 2 hours, 3 hours. You got power on max. Like it's
Yeah.
unless something really bad goes on. But
Yeah.
I think it's just educating them and knowing like
Mm-hmm.
you have to fertilize your lawn, or even you have to cross
Wow.
fence if you're putting horses in there. You have 5 acres with 2 horses. They're going to mow it down to be less than this carpet. So you're going to feed them. So there's bales you got to buy. There's straw if you want to let them sleep on.
Yeah.
Not
So
that a horse
interesting.
lays
Yeah.
down to sleep too often, but it's
Yeah.
any of that stuff. Chickens, all that stuff. Your sheds, like expenses are ridiculous, but it's worth it. Coming
mean-
from a farm.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
and the farm stuff doesn't turn over near as much, but the acreages sure do.
Yeah.
People go out, buy an acreage, 3 to 5 years. Wow, we didn't realize it was going to be this much work. We didn't realize, like I said, stuff freezes up, the power goes off. Yeah, the roads are bad. Getting to, I can't get to work.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff sinks in.
Yeah.
And besides divorce, acreages, supply us with a huge amount of business based on resale.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Give it-
I've actually
Can I ask you some
resold-
questions
Yeah.
really quick?
Yeah.
On that side, because you said, but it's worth it. So we've painted the dreary picture. Now, so what do
Now
you guys?
tell us why we should buy an acreage.
Yeah.
But give us
You
give
said
us
it.
the give us the good side. Why is it worth it to you?
Just growing up on a farm, having that peace and quiet. My dad, you're probably going to cut this part out, but he's like, if I can't take a leak off of my deck, I'm not living. And
leaving it in.
I now live in town. I've got caught taking a leak on the side of the house a few times, right? And it's just like, why would I go inside and waste water if I don't have to, right? So just having the peace and quiet. You sit there, the crickets are, crickets and frogs, and
Yeah.
birds are chirping.
That would be a really, you do some funny advertising. I feel like that could be a good.
There might be a picture of, little Griffin with his pants down peeing on the side of a house coming out soon,
This
right?
could be
Yeah.
you.
It's like Big Daddy.
Yeah,
Maybe,
it's peace and quiet. It's I shoot guns. I don't know. I'm sure you shoot.
Yeah,
guns, but-
absolutely. It's the life. It's a lifestyle, and if you embrace it and you enjoy it,
Yeah.
you're always going to love it. You're gonna find it hard to leave the acreage at some point
Yep.
down the road, right? And obviously that does happen with age, and that people downsize. People that need to be near a hospital or whatever, just can't be out on their own. Then it's a great lifestyle. Like it's everybody's dream. I think at some point maybe in their life, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people really enjoy the country life. So
Yeah.
That's fair.
yep.
I wanted to ask Reese you one question because, when we kind of went and spoke about acreage owners, but the first one, the farmers, and you said, it's all about the numbers. I'm not going to pretend that I remember the words you said, but production, blah, blah. So it almost sounds like you have to be a bit of a business coach. Like, is that part of your job? Is like literally like how to run a successful farm 101?
Well, I don't know if they'd like me telling them how to run their business, but they definitely respect that I know land values and production values as
Is that
well.
an expectation of working with that demographic?
For sure. If you don't know your
Yeah.
stuff, they're gonna know in like 2 minutes, and you're done. Like they're gonna be looking at somebody else to do either their sale or their purchases. And when I said it's all about the numbers, that's not necessarily true. Farmers do have emotions. Like they will buy land on their fence line, the neighbor's land, because they've always had their eye on it. It's land is near and dear to their heart, like it is probably to Brett and mine as well. That's a big reason I got into real estate is because I absolutely love land. It is a passion of mine. Just whether I own it or I don't own it, I love looking at it. I love being on it. I love the dexterity of it, the utility of it, everything about land. And farmers have that emotion that they
that's
when they're
beautiful.
buying land. So
And you get to drive really big toys.
yeah, you do.
Yeah,
Big toys. Yeah, expensive stuff.
I went back to Saskatchewan a couple of weeks ago, and my buddy was seating along the highway, so I pull in, and like I'm in his tractor, my little 3-year-old's on my knee, and there's the smell of fresh
saw
dirt.
that, yeah.
The smell of fresh dirt, as much as it sounds stupid, like to me, when I smell dirt or even harvest,
nostalgic.
Gardeners
it's
get
just
it,
like
yeah.
this is awesome.
That's
right.
great.
So that's what's cool, right? But and you're riding like these tractors nowadays are amazing. Like
GPS.
They basically have a lazy boy in them.
Yeah.
They're that
I probably
easy to
spent my
drive.
first 5-6 years sleeping on the floor in our tractor, going with dad everywhere, right? Like that's so you're connected instantly, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not like sleeping on a Sealy, I'll tell you that much when you're bouncing around
No.
1970s and 80s machinery, but it's just having that comfort, I guess, right? So
So take us to the showing process because you mentioned I don't like heading up north. I'm going to refer some stuff out. Buyers come to you and they say, I want this, but do they have a specific area, or do you end up showing in multiple counties?
Sounds
and
like
now
a lot
you're-
of dr- a lot
you're
of
putting on a
driving.
lot of kilometers. Brett, how are you handling that? The typical buyer, are they all over the place? Are they more homed in?
most of my guys are honed in. They want to own land within, the tractor can only go 12 mile an hour.
Yeah. So okay. So there
Right,
you go.
so
in farm area, you're
I
talking
do,
about.
yeah. So when you're in a tractor, you don't want to be driving from Didsbury to Strathmore to go work your 1/4 of land, right?
Yeah.
That's what I find a lot of my guys, they want to be tight knit. You let me know when these quarters are coming for sale, and I'm actually pulling titles right now on quarters surrounding where one of my farmer lives to find out who owns it, get their address. One of them's actually in Calgary, and I actually went door knocking
Perfect.
just to see, hey, would you guys look at selling? Because I got a guy
Yeah.
that wants to buy, right? So,
Right.
so that's the stuff I do on a day-to-day basis is,
Yeah.
is a lot of title pulling, and my accountant questions all these spin purchases, but you're
Yeah.
literally, trying to find it. But
Yeah,
most
it's a
of the
great
guys
method.
I'm
That's a
working
great
with are
method,
definitely
yeah.
within, they'll draw
Yeah.
a 20-mile circle and they're like no
Oh,
further.
interesting.
Yeah.
So,
Talk about the diversity of
Yeah.
the scope of the range that you end up driving to help a client.
Well, my range is basically Calgary to Ponoka,
Yeah.
both sides of the QE2, out 100 miles. But for the most part, people have a general idea of where they want to be, and especially the farmers and ranchers. They may take pasture land that's further afield because you can put cattle on trucks and truck them a fairly long distance and still be economical. But, the grain land stuff, they like it pretty tight, knit. And, I'm dealing with probably in a year, probably 5 or 6 different counties. And where county lines meet, I mean, obviously, it's not a big difference to be 2 miles into that county and a mile into that county, right? So there is multiple county stuff. If a buyer comes to me and says, oh, I don't care where it is, or, I almost want to run, right? Because they will drive you,
Oh, God.
a 300
Yeah,
mile
let's
day,
look at some of the Strathmore.
a 300 mile day,
let's
a 300 mile day kind of thing, right? And what I just retired a 2012 F350 with 420,000 K on it.
Wow.
To the farm. I retired it to the farm as a work truck now. It's miled out.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
so I do put on a lot of, probably 90 to 100,000 K a year.
So when you're saying miles, are you talking kilometers or
Kilometers, sorry.
miles?
Kilometers. Yeah.
Where'd you
Which is
Yeah,
relatively,
yeah. I was
that's quite low for a
pre-1972.
Ford.
No.
Right, for a
no.
Ford, that's low. For your Chevy, it's probably going to be parked.
What?
Next month.
Easy.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't like this guy anymore.
Yeah.
No.
The one land deal, like that Didsbury one that I did, they were actually looking at land at Peace River too.
Yeah.
The buyer, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So that's who they were deciding between us and Peace River, which is quite a long ways in a tractor.
So
Right, so-
Chevy, Ford, or
Totally.
Dodge?
I have a Ford and a Jeep, so.
I'm a recent convert to a Chev, or
from
GM.
what?
So, huh?
From what?
From a Ford.
Okay, there you go. Just curious.
Good
I'm a Ford from a
Good
Dodge,
question.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, just trying to talk to language.
Yeah, that's the rural lingo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
We
Yeah.
just bought a scooter that goes 45 kilometers an hour.
Yes, you did.
I saw that.
We sure. Oh,
And we're riding
you
it
were
to the
there.
Foo
That's
Fighters.
exactly what we're doing.
I
Yeah.
saw that was a bit of a big deal.
Somebody needs to modify that.
There was a
We
lot
can
of cool
lease them
people,
all
I heard
that.
that meeting that day.
I think so. Anyways, so back to buyers. Home inspections. So obviously, depending on where you're going, the word home inspection is very different. But somebody's looking, and maybe let's just temper this in acreages, right? It's kind of more appealing to everybody watching. They're working with more acreage people.
Yeah.
When somebody's coming into a home inspection on an acreage, what are you prepping your buyers for?
And what kind of inspectors are
Duct tape-
required as well?
Duct tape and number 9 wire?
There you go. Yeah. Red green spaces. No, basically the fact that there's going to be more inspectors involved. Most home inspectors aren't septic guys. Don't know. They don't do wells. So typically you're calling in someone that has septic experience and a well driller potentially to flow the well, do some flow testing, give you an idea of what the casing and the pump. And
Are those two different people, or just
two different people
they do
again?
both?
Like
Okay,
not
yeah.
there's guys that do both. Yeah.
Yep.
So there, you can find efficiencies there, but a lot of I've had as many as 3 or 4 inspectors on a rural property to get the final verdict, right? The house and garage, that's kind of your typical home inspection, homolize or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even your environmentalists, if there's fuel tanks and stuff, you'll do a phase 1 and
Phase one.
phase 2. Like
Got it.
all sorts of,
Yep.
if it's contaminated land, you definitely want to know that. And so I would add that
Yep,
to
that
the
would be
scope,
another
but-
one.
So, so because I'm rookie, not a realtor, I would have no idea. So if if the buyer's eating the cost of that, which they are, so how much is somebody spending? So obviously, you have your normal home inspection, which might be like $400 for a residential property.
Yep.
What are you advising your buyer the budget would be to get all of those people out there?
Nobody really drives out to the country for much under $300, like in my experience.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
tough.
My well and septic combined is around
Yeah.
that 1,500 just for well and
1,500,
septic.
yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
full water testing, flow tests.
And that doesn't
septic tests.
include a home
That
inspection
doesn't
on the
include home
property
inspection. So
or the
I'm
environmentalist
about $2,000-ish.
Yeah.
Depending, a lot of the acreages are big, right? So
Yeah.
they could be $600-700 depending
Yeah.
on square
So
footage.
both of you have sold residential at some
Yep.
point
Oh,
as
yeah.
well.
Oh, yeah.
And
Because everybody that buys an acreage generally
Sells
has a
it.
house that they
Yeah.
want to sell in town, so you get those, right? And then going back the other way, they sell the acreage and you also get to sell them a house in town. So we get
So-
the two-way.
it's got to be a lot harder to walk away from an acreage deal because they are committing, a couple $1,000 to the property versus a home inspection just on
yeah.
a residential
Yeah.
property. So there's almost like that, like I tell people, even before the financing, get your buyer, if they said they're pre-qualified, to do the home inspection first because it commits them. It's like I don't want it to someone who's just willy-nilly unsure of this. If we're going to put a conditional offer in, like we're serious about doing our due diligence here.
Yep.
So do you find that acreage buyers or in farmland buyers are more committed than just north residential?
I would say more on the, if it's got a house on it.
Yeah.
If that wife can fall in love with the house, then they're more committed, right? But in rural where I am with farms and stuff, the house means nothing. So,
Yeah.
you know, most, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know about the north guys, but like you could sell a modular house, and if it's just got a place to sleep, a place to cook, that's usually all they're wanting, right?
good land.
But where I find the country residential guys, you're putting a $1.5 million house on 3 or 4 acres, right? Like so,
Right.
so
Different.
that way I would lean more, you know. But farming, when you're doing phase 1s and phase 2s, that's you're bringing environmentalist expenses are getting huge, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They're getting big.
So
Yep.
they could be, but
Yeah, no, I think the same. Yeah, I mean, inspections at the end of the day are still important. That
Yep.
I mean, everybody wants what they think they're getting to be
Yeah.
up and up, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's probably more emphasis put on some of the the workings of the property as opposed to just purely okay. Well, the inspection didn't come back perfect,
Yeah.
right? Which you know, in town sometimes if seems like if there's a rip in the screen door or something, they'll just walk away from it.
yeah.
It's kind of thing. But
Yeah, or you don't have a junction box covered, or the toilet's leaking.
Yeah,
like it's
literally.
a whole $7 fix.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Where on an acreage
yeah.
or a farm, I would say more of a
Yeah.
farm. There's a lot of guys that just wire stuff and they put them red on it and hope for the best.
Yeah.
And you know,
Literally.
we're walking through it and I'm like, if any of these outside GFI's breakers work, you're good. If none of them work, we're out about $20 a breaker, right? Like it's not life or death. And
Yeah.
I find farm is more, the land is way more valuable
Right.
than the house.
Yeah,
Like
makes
it's,
sense.
Yep.
yeah.
Cool. Do you want to try to talk a little bit about working with sellers?
Yeah. Working with seller and specifically start us off on the pricing side because so you have this house that's on that 4 acre, the country residential thing, but then you have this house that's on 110 acres or 200, you know, whatever it happens to be, a quarter section.
Yeah.
How are you pricing? What's the land value? How are you doing?
We
that?
usually overpriced, right?
Not in this market
Don't
now.
bring
That was
Rees
that was
down
3
the
years
market.
ago.
The market's slow right I forgot.
Yeah, Rees, kick us off. What's your pricing strategy? Price per acre? How are you determining that?
You know, pricing land, I mean, the production side of pricing land is a lot easier than the acreage pricing side of the whole thing. You know, with acreages, a lot of it is just the aesthetics of the land and is it in the right location? Is it, you know, perhaps is it on a paved road versus a gravel road? Is it, you know, and with pricing, you know, I'm going to use acreages here, you know, the first acre out of any subdivision or out of any quarter, creating an acreage is the most valuable acre. You see diminishing returns for every acre beyond that, right? It adds less value. 28 acres versus 43 acres, right? There's not a big variance in that. You know,
So size doesn't matter as much.
it matters. It matters to the people in
men.
terms of it depends. Yeah, it matters in terms of what they
So
need.
low-hanging fruit I had. Sorry.
You know, in terms of their needs, it may matter.
Yeah.
But again, like I said, you know, the first acre to 5, maybe 10 acres are those most important acres that are basically going to establish the value of the land that they're buying. Would you agree with
Yep,
that?
yep.
Yeah.
And to subdivide is expensive, right? Your transportation offsite levies, they call them. So every acre you're subdividing out, there's like Rocky Views, you know, Foothills, they both have a standard rate per acre to subdivide that out. So subdividing it out gets pricey too. But
Yeah.
full quarters, like even on quarter section, we were just chatting one, we both have an app that we use to figure out how many acres are actually usable, how many are farmable, how many are hayland. Knowing all that
sloughs,
stuff. too.
wasteland,
Yeah.
water.
Yeah.
You know, to someone that you know,
Is this a
10
general app
acre
that
a 10
anybody
acre
can use?
lake
Like,
with
what's
ducks,
the-
Yep.
with
Totally.
ducks and wildlife around it might be valuable, but to the farmer, he's like, I don't need 10 acres of duck land.
Can you share what the app is?
No.
No, it's top secret. Yeah.
I use one called DAF Logic. It's
Yeah.
really easy.
Yeah, fair
there's 100 of them out there.
Yeah,
Literally,
sure.
you just drop pins,
Yeah, I use one called AgriPlot.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
So it's
Yeah.
it's
but they're
available.
really hard to work, so you should phone us.
Yeah.
Right?
Or refer your client out.
And this is just it. I mean, even based on how far you guys have gone already, I think it's very fair to say I did one country residential one, and I'm just like, I'm done. and I would refer out all my rural business. Like I have no desire, the
Yeah.
driving times, things like that.
Yep.
I will never mile out a vehicle at that.
Yeah.
You know,
That sounds like us with condos.
yeah. So
Yeah.
precisely.
And the thing I like about farms or acreages is they're unique property. So whoever built that property, whoever built that house, it made sense to them. And the next 4,000 people through it will be like, what were these people thinking? But there's one more person out there that's going to come, like, you don't find the cookie cutters, let's put it that way, right?
Totally.
Like,
Yeah.
you've got a mud room with a sink to do laundry because every boy comes in muddy, and
Yeah.
in town you're like, I want the laundry upstairs, and just that I find it's a lot tougher sell, but it's a tougher sell to find, or tougher to find it, but easier to sell it because it will make sense.
And that goes back into that pricing as well, is that every acreage is unique. There's not another acreage exactly like that one, right? So you don't, like you said, not cookie cutter up and down
Yeah.
the street. You could have a $3 million acreage beside a $300,000 acreage with a mobile home on it or whatever. Like it's just so much variance. Going back to pricing, it's not easy.
One
It's not
follow-up
easy.
question on this really quick.
Yeah.
I imagine that when you guys talked about the productivity of the land, things like that, highest and best use becomes a big factor in all of this. If it's just like, you're living there in this acreage just for aesthetic purposes versus this is going to produce so many crops, I can keep this many head of cattle on there. It obviously changes the price.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Or
Even
price
if I have a
versus-
farm right now listed, it's got $12,000 a year of oil revenue.
There you go.
Great.
Plus, they're making $50 an acre. These guys literally, they just lived there and they built a little shop. They wanted it as an acreage, but they got it for the same price as a 4-acre plot with a really big house. This one is a smaller house. So they put a lot of heart and soul in it, but you've got 12 grand
Yeah,
coming to you
Derek,
a
all
year
that.
for oil and gas. Exactly.
So you've got some payments. made,
$50
you've got
an
taxes
acre off your
paid,
crop
like-
coming
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
You're probably, 80 acres times 50 or $4 grand right there.
Yep.
So you're making 16, 18 grand a year just to have a property.
Nice.
And you don't have to maintain it. A farmer comes in and does it all for you and gives you a share of it, right? So
Yeah.
I find with acreages, the way I value a lot of it is I'll pull sold bare land in that area, take an average and kind of, depending if it's got trees or pavement, all that stuff, to kind of get that land value. But
Yeah.
full
Yeah.
quarters and that, you're kind of going off of
Yeah.
a lot of research and what soil types and
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
a little bit of gut feeling as well
Yeah.
too with it.
yeah. And
Yeah,
most farmers
actually-
have-
Experience.
they
Yeah.
know what it's worth.
Farmers know the
I don't know
production.
many farmers that come in and say, I'll take your number, whatever it is, right?
Yeah,
They're
no.
like, I want 6,000 an acre.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I think we can get 65, right? Or 10 or 15 or whatever it may
Yeah.
be. But it's, each area is different too, I find.
Yeah.
Up
Yeah.
your neck of the woods, I find it more of a banana belt. It's, all the rains that happen around that Didsbury and kind of Kerry North. We're a lot drier in the south, so I find our values are a little less, right? So
Interesting.
Right.
if I am getting in my
Based
truck
on
and
the
driving
rain.
north.
Yeah, so you have more productive land than would be there.
Yeah,
south.
we have, well, through my sales territory, I guess, yeah, we have some of the only #1 land
Yep.
in Alberta, actually.
Wow.
So the highest quality land. Also, like Brett just alluded to, is we do generally get rain. We may have one crop failure or near crop failure out of every 10 years on average, kind of thing. But we're far ahead of a lot of the other areas in the province as far as rainfall. So that does add into it in that, sure, there's high-priced irrigation land, but there's costs that come with irrigation as well. That's definitely something that's not in my specialty is the irrigated lands and stuff
Right.
that are down south. So again, there's an opportunity for referral, to someone that does know it, like perhaps like Brett.
I don't do a whole ton of.
Not
I grew up in
irrigation.
dry old Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but these guys around here, like,
Right.
they're getting 80 to 120 bushel an acre crops. Down here, we're 25 to maybe 40.
All right,
That's-
guys, we're these guys are like, I don't know. we're-
So that means how much
enough with the bushels.
But it's huge. Like it is
Yeah.
really, and going
Yeah.
up north there and selling that
And
one
also,
farm.
yeah, also, where the oil activity is. I mean,
Yeah.
we've been suffering in this province in that respect, but I mean, the wells that are out there that are paying and pay a surface lease revenue.
Got it.
Yeah.
There are, I had a deal at Drayton Valley that was solely bought based on the oil revenue that the land had on it. The land was marginal land at best, but brought in nearly $60,000 annually for revenue. It was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I had 3 investors looking at buying it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So let's kind of not wrap it up, like we still have some time, but for the last little bit, let's talk about marketing. Both of you are
On the
so
seller side, it's
On the,
like
on the
the
seller
properties.
side, yeah.
Yeah.
So you have a listing. Let's start with you, Rees. And you know, Brett, you had said every single property is completely different. People set this stuff up in a very unique way. 4,000 people are going to walk in and have no idea why that's the case, but one person's going to like it. From a marketing perspective, when you are advertising these types of listings, yeah, Rees, you start. What's your strategy?
You know, I guess, of course, you know, portray the property in its best possible light. You know, there is some rough land and you know, rough acreages out there that,
Yeah.
you know, aren't necessarily the nicest properties, but you still try and portray them as good as you can. You know, I guess, you know, just, you want to be honest. You don't want to have people driving out to the country to look at something that isn't going to work for them,
So you
right?
You don't want to misrepresent it, obviously.
Right. So
Whoever,
yeah, definitely not misrepresentation, not over-promising and under-delivering. I think is huge
Yeah.
because again, it's miles on my truck. It's miles of my time. I take time away from my family and you know, leave social events to go show stuff that's 50, 60 miles away or more. And you know, you want them to have a good expectation of what the property is before they get to it. Generally, I don't know. You got anything to add?
Yeah,
to that?
market.
I
What would you do?
like to start every morning by praying that it's going to sell.
Okay.
You missed that part.
Right.
But yeah, it's just promising, like showing what's out there and being honest. I think our write-ups are a lot different than you would see on residential, right? Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
they are for sure.
you know, this one has such and such. Social media has been huge for us. I don't do print marketing either. I did one ad, I think, and it cost me $400 for half a page. I just lost my mind. Right?
I think there's a myth out there that lots of people think, oh, farmers are stuck in 1986 where it's like social media doesn't exist, and these clients is like, no, everyone's connected now. Like everyone.
They are.
Yeah.
They're a little, like, don't get me wrong, the Western producer, I don't know a farmer where I come from that doesn't read that.
No,
Like, that's
absolutely,
gospel.
absolutely.
And maybe that's somewhere we should be marketing. It's not cheap either. And
It's not. I use it on a case-by-case basis if I feel if it's necessary to use print, like Western Producer or something like that.
Course,
We
yeah.
do that.
Property, yeah.
I also use other websites, commercial websites like LoopNet or Farm Marketer. You know, some of that other stuff when it's I think it's necessary or relevant.
Yeah.
Horse clicks, just you know, real specific targeted stuff. If I have
Website
an
of Horse Clicks?
if I have an equestrian property,
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah, got it.
You know, I'll use those horse targeted websites to get it out there to the people that are going to be interested generally anyway. And you know, I kind of talked on the lower end of stuff, but I mean on the high end of stuff as well. I mean, we're doing the full gamut. We're doing professional photos, virtual tours, droning, everything, like going
The
full
whole
bore.
Drone aerial
right?
photography.
Yes.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, you know, the market we're at right now, it's costing us a lot of out of pocket for properties that aren't necessarily moving quickly. So, you know, it does add up.
Yeah.
Doing, you know, making sure that you're doing the best job you possibly can, for sure.
I think the farming side of thing is definitely networking, right? It's whether you're stopping at Hundred Colonies, whether you're, you know, the big farmers in the area driving by, or if you see them, or ask around, or who's the big guys. And the big guys always want more land, right? So it seems like they're always growing, but
Yeah.
it's,
So
yeah.
there's
lot
a
of
few
networking.
contacts you guys have in each of your pockets. And
Yeah.
you're just like, okay, you know, something came up, I'm going to call this guy, or it's in this vicinity. I know a few guys that are there.
Yeah, generally, after years of working
Yeah.
the business, yeah, you've got your go-tos that
Nice.
you know are potentially in the market to buy a piece of land.
And I'm relatively new, so I don't have as big a network on that side, so that's where I'm relying more on the rural guys that we have in brokerage, right?
Right.
So,
Fair
To
enough.
connect with them.
yeah.
From a signage perspective, you have something in the middle of nowhere, so it's not necessarily like you're driving by it and be like, oh, look at that. What are you guys doing for that?
Directional, I do directional signs, little 24-inch by 16-inch directionals at every corner coming from every major road. 4x8 signs, like 4 feet by 8 foot big rural signs on the land.
Yeah.
So that's quite costly too. I have currently
I
about
bet.
10 signs. I think they're about $500-600 a pop. So I've easily got 10 grand worth of signs and stands and stuff like that. And then the little directionals, there's 2 good counties out there, Mountain View and Rocky View are awesome. They don't touch your signs. Foothills is managed by a trucking company that looks after the roads. They remove your
They
signs
remove
and
all
then they
the
throw them in
signage.
piles
Wow.
at their offices. So I had one listing in Rocky View. Actually, one of the neighbors mustn't have liked me. I had 6 signs stole from the same corner.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I actually dog anchored it in and chained it, and they took the dog anchor and the sign. And it was only on the one corner, so
Like those are all considerations, right?
oh yeah, you're $60 a sign and stake. They were taking the stake and the sign.
Yeah.
Unless you have the motion camera there, it's taking photos.
Pretty
of
much,
them.
I was about ready to screw one onto a power pole. But
Yeah.
your client phones you like, well, your sign's not up. Like, why aren't you doing your job? So you drive out there, and that's me driving from Okotoks, north of Cochrane, to put a sign in.
Yeah.
How
Like,
much
no
is
value
that?
added, right?
Yep.
But it's, and I don't know if you do your
Yeah,
own signs and stuff.
You do your own signage as
all,
well?
all our own signage. Yeah.
So
yeah.
do you install the printing?
Yeah, we don't sell
Yep.
4x8 signs standard,
No.
right?
No.
No.
So, and I just hired a sign guy in town here to do all my signs just
Yeah.
because I was driving
Yeah.
Totally. Absolutely.
Yeah.
an hour and a half to put a sign up. There's zero value add to a realtor
Yep.
to do it, but no one else really wants
Yeah.
to do a 4x8.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I also find, that on some rural property as well, there isn't the expectation from the seller, or they may not even want a sign on the property. It kind of goes to alerting the neighbors that we're for sale, kind of thing. Even though it's going to be
Right.
on the,
Yeah.
it's going to be on the internet. It's worldwide. You may even be a luxury portfolio client that may not want a sign on it, just from a neighbor's perspective. Also security. They're not home.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're right.
They're not home, 18 hours of the day or whatever, right?
Totally.
So a sign out front,
Interesting.
inviting traffic, even if you put by appointment only on the top, you still get people driving down the laneway and backing
Absolutely.
out.
or even
right?
into
And-
the cropland, they'll drive right in there to check it out. Like,
Yeah, so we do get that where we don't even have to put a sign because it's requested by the seller not to have a sign. But otherwise, I'm right with Brett. We're using anything from our normal, T-post signs to 4x4 signs, 4x8 signs. We deal with vandalism, we deal with wind, we deal with everything, making sure
Different world,
signage is
hey?
up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of our signage on the bigger stuff, some of it I've gone as far as putting specific property details to a 4x8 sign. That gets costly when you're only using it once
That's
for
right,
one
yeah.
property. There's some of those factors that you got to look at as above and beyond what you're doing potentially for residential.
yeah. I've left mine fairly generic. They're all the same. I don't put
Yeah.
acres on there because I want them now to call me. I
Yep.
did my first one. Like,
Yep.
check out this 2,000 square foot
Yes.
bungalow with this many
And-
acres, and you answered everyone's question and no one phoned you.
Right.
Correct.
So
Yep.
that's what
Yeah,
I've done a little different.
we've been leaning more that way
I'm
too.
like, this
More-
is my number and
more
it's for
generic.
sale.
Yeah.
If you want anything, you have to phone me. Right?
Big and beautiful, but
Yeah.
not a lot of description. Yep. Website and a phone number.
Big and
Interesting.
beautiful.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, you're bigger.
Times 2.
You guys, I
you
can't
go.
say enough good things about the value that you've brought here
Thank
today.
you very much.
And I want to thank you guys for your time. And sincerely, if you are not someone who specializes in rural, please, please, please refer it out. If you're looking to break in, make sure you have the education and partner with someone who's knowledgeable, because your clients deserve it. And there's so many things that
Can and
go
will go
into
wrong.
it. Yeah, and that knowledge is so required. So you guys have built incredible businesses. We follow you guys closely, and are so honored to have you on and share your
Thank
knowledge
you.
with us. So thank you
Awesome.
so much.
Thank you guys.
All right, guys,
All right.
well, have a really great day. If you want some more information on Agent Pursuit, you can find us at agentpursuit.com. We also have a Facebook page, an Instagram account, and recently we have a podcast. So this will be on a podcast that everybody can download and listen to as well. So lots of way to find great content, make it accessible to you guys, and bring in the experts too. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Talk
Thank
to
you
you
guys.
soon.